Welcome to Gleaning and Gathering. Today is an amazing day, and I am here in the studio with both Kaylin and Rebecca.
What? Hello.
Today is the day when we get both of them at home, our last full day at home.
It's true.
And so what are we going to do? Record
Do
a
a
podcast.
Obviously. Of course.
Absolutely. I have harassed them into coming into the studio. So today we have an exciting new topic. Becca, what is our topic today?
Yeah, our topic is 16 hidden skills behind people who attract endless opportunities. This information came from an article by Dan Murray.
Dan Murray, encourage you to look him up on LinkedIn and check out his stuff. I have noticed over the years there are people that seem to get all the opportunities. Mm-hmm. They get the job offers. They get the promotion, and you can look on and say, life's not fair. They just got lucky.
Right. It seems like the same people get it every time. And then there are others that you're just like, well, this is a great person. They have great attributes.
Right. What's the
Why aren't-
difference?
Yeah, right.
Why this person and not that person? So we're going to talk about that today, because what may appear to be just randomness, and some people get picked and other people don't. Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated kind of thing. Actually, there's probably a lot more to it. And so we're going to unpack a few of these today, at least the ones that Dan Murray put out in front of us. And so we're going to talk about this. The first one is they act before they feel ready. And I so know what this feels like. It's a little bit like having kids. You know, when I was just a child, not much older than Rebecca here,
That's crazy.
I had a little
Move
daughter.
on.
I had a little daughter
Yeah.
named Kaylin. And I did not feel prepared to be a dad. But the great thing about having kids when you're young is that you get to grow up together. And so here we are. I mean, it's crazy to think that I've got two daughters in their 20s, and here I am, just the nice young person that I am.
Right.
Spring chicken, basically.
I'm hardly out of toddlerhood. But it's a little bit like that in life too. You have to act before you feel ready.
Yeah.
And people a lot of times wait for confidence, but people that actually end up getting the opportunities, they build confidence by doing stuff.
Yeah.
And the reason that matters is that action creates competence. Nobody starts out by being good at anything.
Right, right.
And the best way to do something is to do it poorly,
Yeah.
Right.
so that later you can do it well.
So this is my first year teaching in the style of I'm the only teacher in the classroom. And anyways, it has been a learning curve in a lot of ways. But the thing that I've had to come back to over and over is the truth that in order to do something well, you have to do it badly.
Yeah.
You have to just kind of, in order to do something well, you have to do it badly and you have to do it scared. So, I think at first I struggled with this one specifically because I was like, really? I feel like you probably need to be competent before you're trying to do this for other people. However, yeah, I think action does create competence, and I don't really understand the whole idea of competence creates belief. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think competence creates belief. For me, the thing that I see is that when you begin to get good at something, then you begin to believe in yourself, and other people also believe in you.
Got it. Okay.
I
Yeah.
don't really want to walk in and, hey, we're having open heart surgery today. How many of you have you done? And the guy says, this is my first. This is my first. Never done this before.
I mean, that's happened.
But that's kind of,
for
yeah,
every
you
heart
have to
surgeon,
do.
So
Every heart surgeon's had to have his first patient.
had to have his first patient.
I just don't want to be that one.
Right. Fair. Totally fair.
And I think competence creates belief, though. Like, the more you've
Yeah.
done something, the more you believe you can do it
Right.
again.
Right.
You know? What about you, Becca?
Yeah, So I don't know, actually. I'm trying to think through. This is my first semester as HR director at GBS. And I'm trying to think through what that looked like. I did jump in without being ready, for sure. There were a lot of things that I just didn't know how to do. But I felt confident already, not because of what I knew or could do, but because of the people that I had around me. So Mrs. Waters, I've worked for her for 3 years very closely, and she just knows so much. So she's kind of like my walking encyclopedia. And she's been the HR director for, 15 years. Yeah, I don't know. I think the biggest part of just jumping in without the confidence for me was the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Like, I don't belong here. Why do they have me in this job? She's been doing it for 15 years. She could be doing it way better than I'm doing it. But yeah, then throughout the year, there were some very specific people that would come and talk to me, encourage me, give me advice on, this is how you should talk to that person, or this is how you should handle this situation, or like next time, like in reflection, they've given me some solid advice. Yeah, and then just solid encouragement, like, you really can do this. Like, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to not believe that you can. Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's so many aspects to it, but I would say the people can cover for some of the lack of confidence, potentially.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got a good safety net
Yeah, for
where
sure.
you're at. So it's not like that you're jumping into it without
Right.
any help. But I think that the principle that we need to act before we feel ready is true, really, if you're going to be someone who is going to get those opportunities.
Yeah.
Because there are so many things out there that you may not have all of the pieces
Right.
for. And yet, if you show up and you do the work,
Yeah.
you'll learn as you go.
And feeling ready. I think that the piece that stops many people from doing that is that they are scared to be taught. They're scared to not be enough. And I guess the rest of these kind of talk about that a little bit more. But the last principle on this list that you've given us is start when you feel 70%.
Yeah.
So it's not just about like you don't know anything. You're going to try to help do the open heart surgery without preparation. No. But probably you're not going to feel ready. You're not going to feel 100% confident. When you have you've built the confidence, and you're like, okay, 70%.
Yeah.
I'm not like a 50-50. I am ready, but you're also giving yourself the word isn't risk. What is it? You're giving yourself well,
you learn the most, I think, when you fail, and then, yeah.
You're giving yourself that window to fail. That,
Yes.
I'm not going to be good at this for...
And that's awful. It hurts so bad. But it is when you learn the most. And so if you're 100% ready and confident and I can do this, if we're honest, we're probably never there
Right.
in reality. But if we feel that way and we think we're just competent, then we're never going to learn. We're never going to, even if we do fail, we're never going to admit that we have failed. And there's just not a bunch of room to grow there.
Yeah. So the way to implement this in your own life is that when you feel 70% ready, move.
Yeah.
And then let experience supply the rest.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good principle. It's one that I've certainly lived out throughout my life. I don't know that I've always gotten to 70%, but I kept moving. Number 2, they carry themselves with calm certainty. The hidden skills behind people who attract endless opportunities.
We talked a while ago about how Gen Z values authenticity, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
Like the previous generation valued stability or competence. And I still agree with that. I think in the business world, the competence is super important. But as we're moving into this new AI saturated generation where you're not really sure what is true and what is real as far as like anything you see online could have been.
Yeah. A deep fake of some kind.
Right.
Yep.
I put up a picture of a butterfly the other day for my kids. Beautiful butterfly. I'm 90% certain that it was just a butterfly. And 2 of my kids started talking about how, oh, that's an AI generated picture. Like, has to be AI. It's too pretty. Anyways, like that kind of, they're 4th graders.
Yeah.
Anyways, that we are questioning at that level so quickly. I think that is influencing our understanding of what is good in the workplace. And so I think there is a time and a place for authenticity that recognizes you don't necessarily have it all together. However, I think this point specifically is saying, what does it say? It says, carry themselves with calm certainty. So I think this is probably different from not being honest. I think you can both be honest about what you don't know and don't understand and aren't sure about, while also being confident, like the direction I've chosen is the right direction. And so if things kind of fall apart along the edges, that's okay. I'm not going to fall apart myself. So
the picture I get of this is of a Christian. So where I work, I get on calls with lots of people talking about a lot of things. So I'm Title IX coordinator as well. So I have meetings every month with local Title IX coordinators, like at UC and other places.
And for the people in the back seats that don't know what Title IX is.
Oh, yes. Sorry. The law that covers sexual harassment and discrimination and all those things in specifically like colleges and universities. And anyways.
And it fluctuates pretty regularly, right?
Oh, so, yeah. The laws are always changing. So the job is always changing. So that's why we meet so frequently, just to discuss those things. But typically what I see, because that job is so easy for me, because the rules at GBS tend to weed out 99% of our problem with that, and the rules at other universities and colleges do not, there is a lot of uncertainty. Anyways, that's the first picture that comes to my mind, is those are the times when you want to carry yourself with certainty. You want to know exactly what's going on, but the laws have just changed 3 times in the last month, and you've got 15 cases this week, and you've got, and that happens in every business. Like, you have all those people like that. But I see the false confidence and the false certainty a lot in those situations. For me, I'm very thankful and blessed because I don't have 15 cases to work through, and I do have certainty. Like, I have self-certainty. Like, I personally know where I'm going. Does that make sense?
Right,
There are some specific things that I can hold on to just as a person, like my relationship with God and the community I'm in. Not everybody can hold on to that. But then also career-wise, there are some places that you have to fake it till you make it. I don't know. It's tricky. I don't love this point because it equalizes things that can't always be equalized in my mind.
I think the way that I took it is that when I walk into a room, I don't ask, what do these people think of me?
Yes.
I'm asking, what do I think of these people? And I think there is a certain level of confidence and calm confidence, not like bombastic confidence, but a steady presence that people tend to gravitate towards. They want something that's solid, that's emotionally regulated, and they tend to gravitate towards that. And a lot of times that doesn't show up in an overt way. But if you're working with someone day in and day out, like, is this person someone who comes in and is just so out of sorts every morning? What does that do over time if they keep calling wolf, wolf, and there's never a wolf?
Right. See, but is part of that, I'm going back on my own thoughts now, is part of that personality? I'm slightly annoyed. I'm always annoyed. That's a bad thing. But because I'm looking at this with my own life, so my own career, I have very little certainty about some things. So when I walk into a room, depending on the room, what is the specific situation? There are going to be these uncertainties and these, I'm not super confident, like the times where I'm not. Does that make sense?
Right.
And
no,
for some
of it is,
personalities, it's going to be easier to just,
right.
I'm confident.
So for what he's saying, I think you can walk into a room and still, like, I think you can think the other way and still be able to regulate your emotions, because that's what it talks about in the second part of it. It says humans subconsciously follow people who regulate their emotions well. So the whole point is not that, like, I don't really feel what other people are feeling, but rather than letting that control you, your feelings tell you what to do. You're the one in control all the time. So you can step out of yourself and say, okay, I feel very anxious in entering this room. However,
this is what I'm going to...
what reality is saying is that I don't have to be anxious. There's
Right.
no... Anyway, so your ability to take truth and implement truth into your actions and make others feel that through your presence,
Right.
I think is what this is talking about. And for a Christian, I think that's where we're headed all the time. Like Christ was the perfect example of emotion regulation. That doesn't mean he never cried. It doesn't mean he didn't feel
Right.
for the people around him, but he was never disconnected from truth.
Yeah.
And to the point that he could not make himself stop yelling, or like everything that he did was a choice. And I think when people see people that are out of control, whether that's
That makes sense. Yeah.
they are just randomly grumpy, or that is a person that is not regulating their own emotions,
Right.
that is not in control. And I think when you see that, you naturally kind of deter from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to be part of that.
Yeah.
Right.
And whether or not you overtly say that, like, to them,
Yeah.
you're going to, okay, note to self.
Yeah. Those kind of people that can't regulate are the ones that will stay stuck in the lower section of the ladder,
Right.
because it takes that kind of regulation to move up into management and leadership.
I think it's one of the reasons that personality does tend to get connected to it, because some personalities tend to be a little bit more passive. And so
Yeah.
they
Even
just
if they
naturally,
aren't.
they don't emit emotions very quickly.
Yeah.
Having said that, I don't think any personality is bound to let their emotions control them. I think a person that has very big emotions can still like control them.
Right.
It just is taking like lots of prayer and lots of discipline. But I think that's what you need for any successful career.
Right.
And even those passive people, those are the people that sometimes once they get to the top, they realize they can't lead because they don't have that drive to be able to make the hard decisions. So I think even if you have that tendency to feel very strongly, I don't think that's any reason for you to like, well, I can't have opportunities.
Right.
I think you can still regulate.
No, I agree completely. I think that's good.
At least that's what I tell my fourth graders.
That's right. No, keep telling them that.
Good. Power kids over there.
Number 3, they stay open instead of defensive.
I love this one.
Yeah.
So good.
So, what do we do with new information? Do we see it as a threat, or do we see it as something that is helpful? Open people adapt faster, and adaptability attracts opportunity. Curiosity and openness means that you're looking ahead, but not dismissive of the information that contradicts your viewpoint. So it's being able to hold truths in tension, being willing to say, this is what I think, but I'm willing to have my mind changed. I meet people regularly that cannot move forward because they are not willing to let go of paradigms or thoughts, the way they're operating, and allow in a new way of thinking. And they're not stuck because somebody else has them in that spot. They're stuck because they won't let anything else in.
This one is tricky because I think in order to function in a world, you have to have a certain set of beliefs that you operate from. And those beliefs are super important, and learning how to stand on them is your ability to function in life is dependent on your ability to believe certain things consistently. And I think action is always connected to belief. So what you do is always connected to
What you believe.
either about yourself or about the world around you. So I do understand the tricky balance between holding on to truth, holding on to what you believe about truth, because if you believe it, that just means you think it's true, while also staying open. So when somebody brings you an idea or a way of living that is different from the way that you have been, that you have decided this is the direction that I'm going, and somebody says, well, what about this new direction? Learning how to hold that in tension is really tricky because you don't want to be open-minded in that there's nothing in there. But at the same time, I think the defensive piece is the one that like hit home the hardest. Because my tendency is not to just ignore new ideas. I love new ideas. But when I have chosen to be a certain kind of person and somebody says that's not good or your way of doing it is not right, they're questioning me at that point. And so learning how to kind of separate it from myself or my identity and look at new ideas and say, is there something that I can learn in this, rather than just letting it be like, you're a bad person. Because anyways.
Yeah, that's really funny. I kind of took this in the opposite direction. So I think we have the opposite struggle, and it overlaps a little bit. I would struggle more to figure out what solid beliefs I have than I would to accept new ones. So I used to be the kind of person, I think, that just did whatever I was told. Didn't really have any solid ideas of my own. That sounds so dramatic, but I think it's fairly true. Like, I was stubborn on maybe 2 things. Basically, if Kaylin told me to do something, I would do it. Or if mommy and daddy told me to do something, like, I might get annoyed inside my head, but there were very few times that I would like, no, I will not. This is what I believe. This is what anyways. Then I went to college and I was by myself for the first time in, forever. And so then I started to form these ideas, and then I would come home and get, pushed back and wait, you're a person now? Anyways, so recently I've come in contact with a few differing ideas from some friends and family, and like, I don't know, there have been just several situations. And it's been interesting to see how I respond to that now while thinking about how I used to respond. I think both can be a big danger. So both leaning towards your ideas being too solid that you can't move. And then also, like you were saying, just being so open-minded that, not that my brain was empty, but that things were
moved quickly.
Right. Things were constantly passing through and my ideas were constantly changing. And yeah, so I think I may lean more towards liking my way just because it's less controversial, I think. But again, you can push back, because not that it's my way or your way, but I hate controversy, and the defensive side always brings that. Unless the other person is just like, okay, you're fine. I think there's a lot of room for tension with this thing. So if you get 2 intense people that strongly disagree about a pretty important thing, I don't know. I think there are several ways to think about this, and multiple ways can be good and okay.
I think for sure you can have 2 very intense people that have very strong beliefs that are very different, but as long as you don't let it become personal, I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Then it doesn't become defensive. Like, at the end of the day, the whole point is that the best decision be made for the company or the organization or whatever. And like, that could be done by one person saying, you know what, rather than fighting for this thing that I think, I'm gonna just rest and let you take the reins on that. And so then that definitely does eliminate the controversy, but it doesn't necessarily get you to the best outcome.
Fix the problem.
Like,
yeah, I say I like mine the best, but in reality, it actually doesn't fix anything. Like, I'm thinking about specific situations right now, and there are so many times that I wish I had a solid, like, I wish I had been like you, because I think it would have fixed a lot of things. I don't know. Anyway.
I think also, though, the balance thing is really important, because there have been things that don't need to be fought.
Fair. Yeah.
That. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and the older I get, the more I realize that probably most of the things don't need to be fought. There are very few hills that are really worth dying on.
True. However, I think the whole idea of trust, like when you truly trust a group of people, you're willing to put your actual ideas out there, not just sit in the meeting, listen to the party line, say, yeah, I agree with the party line, and walk home. If you really do care about the organization or whatever it is that you are making a decision about, not that you're always going to fight for something, like fight for your way or the highway, but you will care about it enough to say, like, okay, this is what I genuinely think.
Yeah.
I think when you're not having those controversies, probably there's either a trust issue or a commitment issue. I mean, which is very, very similar.
Yeah. I think, though, that the kinds of things that would make me defensive now, the older I get, are fewer and fewer. I find myself more open because I am more confident in the place where I'm standing. There are things
you have those beliefs that know they're not going anywhere.
They're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I know where I stand.
Yeah.
And those are not up for negotiation. Yeah. And because of that, I can look at new thoughts, new ideas with confidence and with curiosity even.
So you are the perfectly balanced.
I don't know about that, but
version of Caleb and I.
But I do.
Right, there you go.
I do think, though, that his comment on how to implement this is, instead of saying I already know, replace that with tell me more.
I love that.
And I find myself doing that more now than I used to.
For sure.
Used to, I felt like I already know. And the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. And the more curious that I am about, tell me more. Where are you coming from on this? And why is it that you think what you think? How did you come to that conclusion?
Not necessarily that you're going to just take your opinion and say, like, as soon as you tell me, I will just, that is not mine.
No. But if you've got a good reason,
right, and
you've thought this through, I want to hear that.
Yeah. And that has played out so incredibly, so wonderfully in our family. At least I know for me, I go into the world expecting to be heard because I have been heard. And I think that does end up changing the way that I approach most conversations and most interactions in general in life. And I think, just as a family, you have modeled that a lot. I've experienced, not in our family, but watching other families, they struggle when the younger kids become vocal, trying to learn how to adapt, because there was one way, and that was mom and dad's way. And then mom and dad are trying to learn how to adjust their kids having a new way. And either the kid, like, if mom and dad can't hear, then the kids will just leave. Like, there's no open communication. And learning how to stay open. And I think that is the way of Christ. Like, the most beautiful saints that I know are the ones that are still learning. And there's a sweet spirit there. There's not a spirit of bitterness or hardness or harshness.
One of the great examples of that you saying that made me think of Sam Lindahl. I remember visiting him shortly before he passed away. He died of pancreatic cancer several years ago. He wasn't very old when he passed away, but I remember visiting him. It was probably less than a month before he passed away. And he was that day showing me things that he had just learned that week. And I would frequently bounce things off of him, and he always would shoot straight with me. I remember me sharing a message that I was planning on sharing at a convention in Pennsylvania, and him just kind of ripping it to shreds.
Good.
And saying, I hear what you're saying, but it means what it means. The scripture means what it means. It can't mean two things. And so you need to start by exegeting the passage properly and then applying. Don't move to application before you actually know what it means. Wow. And, I needed that, and I appreciated it. But he was someone who had very strong convictions, and yet remained open and an attitude of learning and curiosity till the day he died.
Yeah.
And I marveled at that, really, because there are people, as they become older, who become more recalcitrant. They become more hardened in where where their positions are. Like, this is the way. And then there are those people, those saints that I've watched who just with a sweetness are able to somehow not become that.
Right. They still hold things very, like very strongly. I don't think that there's any, but it's like there's a rest there. It's like, it's not, yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's true for people that are getting these opportunities that are coming to them.
That's true.
They maintain that openness. So number 4, we're not going to probably get through all 16 in this podcast. So if you're worried,
don't be worried. Don't be stressed. I will get tired before
this
you
is this is I think the last one for this episode. They ask real questions.
Yeah.
Number 4, not to impress, but to understand. I love that.
That's
and
so good.
I think that good leaders ask great questions. And questions are how we learn and grow. I still remember Kaylin, she was probably 1, maybe 2, but she would come up to me and say, I want to ask you a question. And that was
Classic.
a classic Kaylin line. I want to ask you a question. And I love good questions. Questions are so important. And many people, at the end of a presentation or something, there's always that, okay, we're going to have some Q&A time now. And it's always interesting to me, the people that line up and the questions that they ask. Because there's those people that like give the 5-minute long question that's really a statement.
Right.
And designed to
they
make
use words like
everybody-
photosynthesis to make people think they're smarter.
it's like I am super smart. I am the smartest one in the room, and then
I just want you to know that.
That's right. And then there's the people that are, sycophant, flattering type, your presentation today was an amazing blah, 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 blah. I know. And it may have been, but the question,
Right.
the question, that's what we were here.
Yeah.
And then there's someone in the crowd, sometimes, that asks a question that really gets to the heart of, like, that's the question that I had. That's the one that because they really do want to understand.
Right.
And I think that is a characteristic of the kind of person who really has opportunities coming to them regularly. Is there people who are just curious and they ask great questions.
And I will say, coming from a person who struggles to word properly,
You do a great job.
Well, not always. And I remember when I first consciously started asking questions and trying to have conversations, and my friends were great because they just suffered through it and we grew, but I just had to do it and then learn, this is the kind of question that gets the answer that I want. Like, many times I know in my head what I want to ask or where I want the conversation to go from this question, but I don't know how to get there. And so just starting with a group of people that you trust, that will not rush you on, like, well, you haven't gotten there in 5 minutes, so let's just move on, or whatever. Start with a group of people that you know cares and is willing to just listen and work through it and think through it. And
that won't shut you down in the process.
Right. And take the little words that you can get out and make them mean something. I don't know. That's kind of the journey that I went on and am still on. Because not everybody has the gift of asking questions.
No, and I think that it's a skill that is developed.
For sure.
It's like a muscle.
Yes.
To be able to ask really good questions, you have to be willing to look stupid.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if a lot of people, the reason they don't ask the question is like, I know this is a stupid question, but how many times have you heard somebody say that?
Yeah.
Preface that and then ask the question
then
that
ask the question
everybody wanted to know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the stupid question is the one that probably needs to be asked because
Yeah.
it's the one that is simple enough
Yeah.
that gets to the heart of whatever the issue is.
Yeah.
Right.
A beautiful example of this, Miss V has helped me so much at school. So acronyms are huge in the education world and in the HR and Title IX world as well. okay, so if you've not been there for 10 years, you don't know what any of the acronyms mean, and it is so annoying. So Miss V's told me this story a couple times, and it just makes me laugh every time. She said when she first started going to the admin meetings, so all the administrators at GBS meet once a week, they would pass around these acronyms, and she was like, I don't know what this means. Well, then Beth Stetler came a few years later, and she would stop and say, what does that mean? I've not heard that one before. And Miss V was like, I learned so much. She's like, Becca, just ask the question.
Yeah.
Because it's okay. Everybody's wondering, maybe not everybody, but a couple people are wondering at least, what does this mean? How? I don't get it. And yeah, she was like, I laughed so hard. Like, why haven't I been asking these questions? But we just don't think it's okay.
Right.
Until you get a Beth Stetler in there to say,
Yeah.
I don't know what this means.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. So we're all wondering. You just have to have the confidence to ask.
Yes, you have not because you asked not.
Literally.
I also think it connects to the idea of humility, like not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less. Anyways, you've had those conversations where you realize the person wants to sound
Erudite.
There you go.
I don't even know what that means.
So
See?
And not just that. They want to look good. So it's
Right.
not just about like, oh, I want to sound smart here. But then there are also people that you just know they heard you. They acknowledge your presence. And Lewis talks about how we would never realize that a humble person is humble. He's just going to look a lot more he's going to seem like he really cares about what you're saying. And you might not like him because he probably has a lot more fun than you do. Like that willingness to not be self-absorbed.
Yeah.
And not really worry about what other people are thinking of you. But genuine curiosity allows you to step outside yourself.
Yeah. Well, one way to apply this is to ask one follow-up question in every conversation. It's amazing how if you just go one layer deeper in whatever question that you're asking, a great way to do this, they'll tell you something. So how did your weekend go? And they tell you a story. And in the middle of that, asking a follow-up question like, so how did that make you feel?
I hate that question.
Yeah. Or some level of
Right.
follow-up
One of
question
them, yes.
that says, I'm really interested in what you just said, and I want to know more.
And it could be as simple as, you said you went out to eat. Where'd you go, or what did you have? Because that shows that,
You were hearing.
yeah, that's not as intimidating as, how did that make you feel? That's so stressful. I don't know. But if you just like, oh, you went to that restaurant, that's super cool. I've been there one time and I didn't love the food, or then that gets you a level of like, okay, now we're on an experience, and then I don't know. That's
And intentionally not just connecting your experience to their experience.
Fair.
Like I think connecting is super important, but often if it's not connected to a question, then it just feels like you're like, here, I will now
so
make this
going
about
on
me.
with it, like I've been to that restaurant.
I went to that
once.
restaurant once, and I had a terrible experience.
Yeah,
and
but what
now
did
it's
you
all
have?
about me.
Or
Yeah.
moving it. I do think maybe this is just a me thing. I don't know. I think it's important to connect it to you and then go back to them.
Yeah.
Because that when it's all about them, unless they're completely
true.
absorbed, then that can feel awkward and make them feel guilty about talking.
It's true. It's true.
So if you can connect it a little bit to yourself and then go back to them again.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I think that asking good questions, asking real questions,
Yeah.
is a skill that
Yeah.
should be developed.
For sure.
So we're going to finish the rest of the 16 some other time. But thank you both for coming and joining me in the studio today.
Yeah,
It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
We look forward to hearing both of you, or one or the other of you, again on the podcast. We are using Riverside now, so we can do multi-site. And so that's
Yay.
one of the things that we've got a new tool in our toolbox. We don't have to just be physically in the same room anymore, although today we are. Again, thank you for joining us here at Gleaning and Gathering, and look forward to hearing from you again in the future.